Hi, class. My name is Katrina Sheely. I recorded this 3 times at school and I tried to load it onto the discussion board and it says that it is not converting. So I'm trying this at home again. It's Friday evening. Um, my defense is I tried to do it at school whenever I had makeup on, so I apologize for my appearance. To begin with, I printed off all the information from Dr. Howson's instructions about the things that we're supposed to go through and look at in the different articles. And so I'm going to quickly move through the ones that we were asked to read and say basically what I found that surprised me and then what I thought would be useful. There were a few things that I thought were controversial, but I didn't really focus on that. So the first one that we were all supposed to read, that everyone reads, is the nonverbal measures of intelligence. When I thought about that, I guess I was thinking about manipulatives like children having puzzles that they have to put together by hand. And it was along those veins. I felt like the main thing that I wrote down was the names of 3 tests that were given, the Culture Fair Intelligence Test. Not a lot of detail was given about the tests, just that they progressed from easier to hard, that they focused on analytical and reasoning, problem solving skills, and the Culture Fair Intelligence measures individual intelligence while reducing the influence of verbal fluency. So I kind of went through that one quickly. I started to pick up on some of the language and the jargon of gifted studies. I have an endorsement in SPED. I'm a general ed teacher. I teach English high school, and I've taken some extra courses. I'm at the end of my Master's of Art in Teaching program. I'm literally going to graduate May 9th, my 7th semester. I'm very excited, but I haven't taken anything gifted. And I realize now that this was a good choice because some of the same themes run through each category and through each um, article. One of those being teacher education. And as I got to the next to last category, the fourth category was teacher preparation. Um, so thank you for welcoming me into your small group here. I see that the class is small. Many of you have taken classes together because you're probably in the same department. Identification. This one was the chunker. I had to put this one down and come back like 3 different times. It was the national view of promising programs, practices for culturally, linguistically, and ethically diverse, gifted and talented students. I appreciated how it was separated. I liked the specific programs that were listed and how those programs were working at the different schools. Some things that were food for thought as a gen ed teacher, that a lot of times those gifted assessments to see if people can be placed in gifted programs are very like No Child Left Behindish in the sense that they're very standardized testing. And in our defense, that's where we've been moving. But in their defense, that's not working. So we need to try something else. But I hadn't thought of it in that light. For let me put notes real quick. For this article, first of all, I like the quote by the lady from Louisiana. I thought that was hilarious. The shocking thing was that at one school that had implemented the program called Excite, I think, Program Excite, Project Excite. Then after 2 years, there was a 300% increase in the number of minority children eligible for advanced math classes by 6th grade. I thought that was a very shocking statistic. Obviously, that was working. The teacher perceptions of cultural beliefs and then the No Child Left Behind statement are the 3 things that I gleaned, the nuggets that I gleaned out of here. Although the whole thing was jam packed full of wonderful information. That was category 1. Category 2, the article that I chose um, is about access and for culturally diverse and gifted students that providing access. This one was called From Deficit to Dynamic Thinking, and it focuses on both on deficit thinking, in the topic of, I think the first one was intelligence, yes, and then dynamic thinking about intelligence, and then deficit thinking about testing and assessment, and dynamic thinking about testing and assessment. What a unique way to present the information um, in a compare and contrast sense, all the way through. It read well, and I was able to absorb a lot from it. Again, I saw a lot of the same things starting to become mentioned. I'm starting to pick up on some jargon and some language about gifted and talented students. The thing that I liked the most about this was at the end. I highlighted it. It very specifically lays out the things that need to happen to increase representation in gifted and talented. Examine the philosophy and definitions of giftedness. What does it mean? Equitable assessment tools. The demographics in your group should look like the demographics of your school. The school needs to have professional development for educators. They need to examine how families are involved. The curriculum instruction needs to be grounded in multiculturalism, and policies should be in place to support multiculturalism and diversity. So again, like hitting on all of these major things. We go from different topics, but the different topics talk about the same issues. The third one, I believe the next one for category 3, we all had to read. Yes. And it was about parent concerns. This one was another power puncher because it listed so many things that were just like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And turn the next one, oh my gosh, that's so good. For the sake of time, I want to just hit the highlights. The most shocking thing, they broke it down in this one and say, if parents are going to be advocates, here's a plan. This is what you can do. It goes into these 4 phases. Then the article moves quickly into detailing the 4 phases. And, at the very beginning, it's the needs assessment. All right. So we need to assess the needs. The first thing that they say to do is to identify the target groups that have significant influence. You need to determine who the leaders are. You need to survey their opinions. And then you need to find out, and I highlighted this, on what side of the fence they're on. Now imagine if you have a child that speaks English as a second language. You're an immigrant and your English is a second language for you, and you may not even speak it as fluently as your child does. And you're going to identify administrators or school board members that you want to survey their opinions and then try to assess and determine what side of the fence they're on. That's a very daunting task, but yet it is what parents are charged with, in the sense that if they're going to advocate for their child, they need to know basically what they're up against. So that started as I was trying to imagine these things and create a visual in my mind of walking through. If I was a parent and I went through this phase and this phase and this phase, the very first phase seems very overwhelming. What if you are met with extraordinary prejudice or a dismissal of this isn't something that needs to be dealt with right now? Then what would you do? If you can get past identifying who your target people are that can make policy changes and they're willing to work with you, the power punching nugget that I thought in the next phase was equity through accountability, and having that account of keeping up with people. The next categories for the teacher perceptions, by the time I got to this one, I really felt like everything was starting to flow into itself. I believe that, the main thing I got from this is understanding that there's overrepresentation in SPED and underrepresentation in gifted. The main thing that I thought was so shocking about this was that California doesn't have a gifted mandate. I'm going to run out of time in 30 seconds. So quickly, I got solutions for Jay. Again, the way that this was written really helped me to see the perspective from the student. Before in the parent one, I was seeing it from the parent. Now I'm seeing it from the student. That social interaction. I thought all of the articles were fantastic, and I can't wait to listen to some of your videos.